Well, first of all, it feels a little better than it did 3 years ago, I think, when I sat in this chair. A little less nerve-wracking, but excited about season beginning. It's been a long off season, a long summer for our players and coaches, and really looking forward to seeing what this team is capable of doing. I thought they had a really good finish to our year last year, and it sort of buoyed us into the summer where I thought we changed gears as far as our training. Sean did a terrific job. Sean McPherson, our strength coach, did a terrific job this summer, taking our players really physically, I thought, to a different level. I think we're quicker. I think we're in better shape this year, and that's really probably comes from the third year of training. So I think we've got a base now where we can really play a lot of different ways. And I'm really excited about our newcomers. I think we have a good blend of players for the first time in 3 years. We have experience to go along with some young ones that will bring us a different level of energy and to say the least, talent. But really looking forward to it. I thought recruiting is going terrific. Really pleased that our staff has stayed intact. The only change that we had in staff was Stacy Stevens taking a job at Sam Houston State as an assistant coach. So I was thrilled for her that she was able to move on. And then we replaced Stacy with Fran Harris, who is a former player here, that is actually able to bring us a different dimension to our staff. So again, very pleased that the coaching staff in particular stayed intact, and that gives us a level of consistency with not only the coaching part on the floor, but also in recruiting.
Coach, being picked to win the conference, I mean, it wasn't that long ago when all the odds were against you. Are you even surprised at how quick you've been able to turn things around?
I don't think I'm surprised because I thought that we had a good base. When you talk about the first year, we had some injuries and some adversity that wasn't necessarily expected, and I don't know that our talent level was exactly where it needed to be, but I've always had the confidence in recruiting in my staff and the way that we work, so I felt like we could get, because of Texas basketball and how strong it is in the high school ranks, I really felt like we could get where we belong quickly in recruiting. I thought we could make up some ground. And I still say the preseason rankings, it's nice to say that we were picked to win, but I also think that it's one of those years where there's a little uncertainty in our league from the women's side where I don't think everybody knows how everybody's going to be. So I think we were just the one that everybody decided to pick based on who we did have returning, in particular our front line. But I also think that if you talk to all the coaches, there's probably 3 or 4 people they would have said they can win it. I don't think so. You look at last year, and I think Oklahoma was picked to win the league last year, and it's all about how you prepare for Big 12 play, and then obviously some of it is how you get off to what kind of start you get off to, and that was where Oklahoma fell a little bit short last year because they had some really close games that sort of sent them in the tank early. So I think that if we can just preach to our team to take one day at a time, one game at a time, then that's really the only thing we need to focus on. It's a long season.
Coach Kelsey Lang had a good season last
Mm-hmm.
year, but I want to guess more expected of her because of Bonnie's injury. What do you expect from her as far as minutes played? And she looks like a different player. Maybe she's lost some weight or something.
Well, I'm sure that anybody that looks at Kelsey would notice that that's the first thing that you notice about her, which is that she looks completely differently from a body perspective, and I wouldn't call it a weight issue at all. She's just changed her body, and that's from the training. It's a little bit different for post players to get into this level of play, and the conditioning is different. The pace of the game is so different. So her body has changed a lot. She's leaner, stronger, runs the floor better. Kelsey could always shoot, so I think she's just been able to add some pieces to her game. I do think that she will have to go through sort of a learning experience early in the season because she'd never had that pressure last year. She could always kind of play behind Damani, or even sometimes she played in front, but there was never a pressure because she knew there was someone there. And this year I think we've sort of picked up the pace on what Kelsey needs to be doing every day in practice, and quite honestly, she has responded really positively. Now, she's not where she needs to be right now, Rick, but she's really working every day to get there. She's in rehab right now, obviously, and it's a process where it's a healing process, and there's not much more we can really talk about at this point. It's going really well, and we don't have a date though on when she might return.
Do you have to change your style on offense a little bit? Not having the big girl there, maybe you have a lot of 3s and 4s on your team,
Mm-hmm.
like 5'11", 6-footers.
Right. Well, I think the first thing you'll notice if you watch our team very much is that we have a bit of a change in our speed aspect. So we can change our style a little bit just because for the last couple of years we've had issues with depth at the guard position. And I think that most certainly is not an issue this year. If you look at our team across the board, we're 2 or 3 deep at the 1, the 2, and the 3 this year. So we can change our style a little bit, and probably regardless of whether Imani plays or not, we would have changed a little bit of the way that we play just because we have more depth at the guard position.
Go ahead. There's a lot of hype around this freshman class this year.
Mm-hmm.
How big of an impact can they make right away, and what do you kind of expect from them?
Well, you expect a lot when you have all the accolades that they came in here with, but as a coach, you do understand that there's just a huge learning curve with freshmen, regardless of what, regardless of how talented they are, how prepared they are, which all 3 of these, and we have one of our freshmen, Deani Akabogan, is actually out right now with an injury, but the other 3, they were prepared from a standpoint that they understood how to compete, and that's the first thing that we all noticed as a coaching staff immediately was when we started practice. There's never a time when you look at them and you know, most freshmen, they're bent over, sometimes crying, because it's so much harder and the pace is so much faster, and that's something that you've never noticed about this group of freshmen. They have been able to keep the pace. They've been able to keep the pace competitively, but they just are lost sometimes. They don't know the plays. They're overwhelmed sometimes with the physicality, but from a production standpoint, they will make a huge difference because they're basketball players, and once the game starts and the lights come on, I think they'll play the game.
Specifically, Ariel, coach.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of hype there. How's she doing, and your expectations?
Well, I have high expectations for her because she's so talented. She has the ability to change the game because of her instincts, but also because of her scoring ability, and that was the one aspect last year that we talked about a lot of times in tight games, which was the game was on the line or we were getting stagnant offensively. There was really never a player that you could just say, okay, go get me a bucket. Create something either for yourself or for someone else on your team, and that's the one thing that Ariel has the capabilities of doing. Once she calms down and gets used to the game, which right now, if you watch her, she looks a little bewildered at times, but that's going to come because she works so hard. The one thing I would say is be careful, or I would be careful, and I have already caught myself with this, talking too much about Ariel and not talking about the other 2, because in practice they have been as impressive as Ariel. And I say that about Brooke McCarty and Tasia Foman. They're little in stature, but they really know the game, and their instincts are terrific, and they both can shoot the basketball, they can score it, they can pass, they can defend. So they give us a bit of a different dimension also. Really pleased with the freshmen right now.
What are you expecting from NECA this year, coming into her senior year, getting to play practically at home?
Well, I want NECA to have a great year. I want Crystal Henderson to have a great year. I want the players, I want the seniors and juniors to have a great year because they are the ones that have really been the base of what we've been trying to do. They're the ones that bought into the culture change. They're the ones that have really ground this thing out for 3 years now, and you want them to reap the benefits of their hard work. So not just NECA, all of them I want to have a great year because they've put the time in. They've really put the work in to be successful. In particular, NECA, I think she's set up because she has put some extra time in this year. I think she can do some different things offensively and maybe free herself up from taking the pounding that she takes sometimes. But on the other side of that, NECA needs to never forget what she's really good at, and that is getting down in the paint, offensive rebounding, running the floor, doing the, I want to say, dirty work things, but that's really what she's really special about. So I really think because we have some talent surrounding her and we have a lot of the pieces, NECA just needs to do what NECA does best. And part of that is lead us every day in practice, set the tone for our team, and then they'll follow her.
Coach, you had quite a Duncanville connection, not with just one new player, 2 or 3 last year. Does a person's background from high school matter a lot when you're recruiting players that may add to it?
Well, I'd probably have to bring Jaylee Mitchell up here from Duncanville, and it's on my staff, so there's your first connection right there. And if you could go a step further, obviously Kathy Self-Morgan is another connection, so there's a long line of Duncanville people that are familiar with the University of Texas. But to answer your question, I would say that about any successful high school program. You could use NECA's experience at Pflugerville and any of those players, Brooke. I mean, if you go down the line, several of our players on our team played in the state tournament, either here or in their own state. And I think once you start talking about that many players that raise their hand when you say, did you either win one or did you play for the championship or the Final Four, then you start putting together young people that know how to compete, maybe just a little bit extra than the average person, which is what you have to do to win championships. And Duncanville certainly is in that category, and those players from Duncanville are.
Talking about the juniors and seniors that at the base of, use the term culture change, because of the work that it takes to change things like that. Do you find yourself being able to coach more, being able to train more, and less of doing all that comes with the change of program?
I think the biggest comfort that I have is, again, the consistency with our coaching staff. Because what I have found this year in the fall, in particular when we started practice, was the fact that they've all stayed here, and then you have the older players to go along with that, then yes, you're right. I do have to say less sometimes, but a lot of it has to do with my coaching staff. It has to do with the fact that they now know sort of what I expect also, and they sort of think ahead for me, and they're taking care of things on the front end now that they just didn't know when we all got together. I mean, they didn't quite know what the front end was any better than the players did. So that has become comfortable and I think much more consistent. And then the older players sort of fall in line with that.
Coach, you mentioned NECA's improvements. Are there any other players that have made dramatic improvements over the
Oh, yes, several. Right off the top of my head, just from these first couple of weeks of practices, I think that Bree Taylor is going to catch everybody's eye. She came in late last year as far as playing time because she missed the first semester, so she sort of got thrown in. She and Nakia both did, really, because they missed most of the first semester, so it sort of just threw them in the games and said do whatever, and because they missed so many teaching reps. So the fact that they've had the summer and the fall, Bree really has become more understanding of what it is that we're looking for. She's still, we call her the wild thing, because she's wild. She's really wild. Travis, I think, told me this morning he was trying to get her to understand wild is really not a great term for a coach to use for you. But I say it really wholeheartedly that she makes things happen because you're not going to miss her. I mean, we had a scrimmage on Sunday, and I know I can't talk about it, but the one thing I will say is that she probably broke 2 or 3 chairs diving into the bleachers, but you're going to notice Bree Taylor. She's improved. She's just has a better understanding, and Empress Davenport has really improved. That's the one player that I just see from where we started. Now she's become very solid, just consistent basketball player. Her shooting's improved, but really just her presence has improved dramatically. And I think Kelsey's improved. I think the sophomores are all improved. Nakia missed a little bit of time this summer, and I think everybody always wants to know about Nakia, so I'll go ahead and answer that question. She missed a little bit of practice time this summer, so she's getting back on track from a conditioning perspective, but she'll get there by the time conference play begins, and I think she adds a dimension to our team that is no one else on our team can do. I mean, she can do things that are special, that are instinctive, that there's really not another player that has that kind of versatility.
Do you have an idea yet what you think your lineup might be, or is that something you're tinkering with all the time?
Guard-wise, no, not quite yet. I haven't found the solid starter, I would say, at the point position. That's quite a battle right now. It's a fun battle to watch, and it changes every single day. No one has quite stepped up to the forefront there. I think the front line, you would probably say at this point, NECA and Kelsey are pretty solid with that. Nakia is going to give us some time. Lily Vanderzee will help us. And actually, we've tinkered, back to your question, with a small lineup with Bree and Ariel and some of those guys playing the four some. So it's a fast lineup, but it's small. I think you could probably say at this point Empress is really solid with the way she's played. The guard battle is fun. It's been fun to watch.
Karen, do you like having all the early tests in that?
Absolutely. I do. I think the road trip on the West Coast will be really good for us. Obviously Stanford is terrific, and UCLA is coming in with the #1 recruiting class in the country. So I think those will be really good early tests. And then we sprinkle, I say that, Tennessee at home, and then have the opportunity to go to Little Rock with the SEC Challenge and play A&M. So I think all of those, they're spaced out enough where I think we'll have practice time or home games that we can work on some things and hopefully learn from those experiences and be prepared for Big 12 play. I still say that even though you might take a lump or two, it's still better to learn and know what your weaknesses are before you get to Big 12 play. Our first year, we didn't experience that, and we thought we were a lot better than we really were. And our first trip to Iowa State was a lesson learned. So you'd rather learn those early. Absolutely.
Coach Pam and maybe some well-placed UT administrators kind of bristle about A&M and playing home games or whatever in any sport.
Mm-hmm.
Does your team relish playing A&M? Do you as a coach care? The other teams that A&M on your test?
Oh, I'm not going to say I don't care. It'd be hard to say that you don't care that you're playing A&M. It was a great rivalry, and the fact that we've been, ironically enough, matched up with them 2 consecutive years, it wasn't anything that we planned on, but we'll sure lace them up and play them. I don't have a problem with that.
The girls remember they're supposed to hate them, right?
Do what?
The girls remember they're supposed to hate them.
I think they remember that somewhere along the way. Did you say, do they care? I think players like to play good teams. I think if you ask any college athlete, they would say, I want to play good people. I want to play against the best. I want to play people that you know that you're going to learn some lesson from them. And I don't think they care necessarily who they are, but I do think that players enjoy playing in front of big crowds, and they enjoy playing competitive games. It's terrific, and then you follow up the next year we're going to go to Oklahoma City, which will be basically these challenges. The first 2 in particular are promos for the conference tournaments. So that's the reason why we're playing in Little Rock. I think everybody thought it was for some reason because I was from there and Gary used to coach there. It just was ironic enough that happened. But we'll go to Oklahoma City and promo the Big 12 tournament in Oklahoma City 2 years from now, and we'll play Arkansas. So and A&M will play Oklahoma, and then from there continues the Big 12 SEC Challenge. So I think this is going to be really fun. Great games. I mean, we both have great teams. We both have tons of great recruits coming in. So these are challenges that are going to be exciting for the players.
Talk about a little bit about Brady, her ability to shoot more.
Yeah, Brady's going to be one of those players that we're expecting to make perimeter shots. And that's probably going to be the biggest difference in our team this year and what we've had in the last 2 years is that I think we can really clearly define roles because we have players that can do a lot of different things, but we also have some that specifically you can define things that they do best. And Brady has some very, very distinct qualities that she brings to our team. And the first one I would say right off the bat is leadership. She is probably the best leader from the perspective of how she handles her business off the court, what kind of teammate she is, and then how she performs on the court most days. And that would be the first thing we'd be looking for out of her. And then the second thing is she has the capabilities of hitting perimeter shots. And if you looked at our team last year, that was the one thing with our post presence that we were lacking, which was a few perimeter players that could just stand out there and space the floor. And she will definitely be one of those. But the intangibles Brady brings are really the most important. The energy level, the enthusiasm, the personality of our team, a lot of it comes through her.